I'm Chris Brace. I work in the PVRC, as you say. Now that is the PVRC Powertrain and Vehicle Research Centre is based within mechanical engineering, but we work with academics from across the university to work on various areas of the powertrain and the vehicle. What I'm talking to you today about is the work that we've been doing with Ford over quite a long period of time, 25 years, predates my involvement with the university. I've only worked for the university for 18 years, so that's been a consistent theme over my time at the university, is the work that we've done with Ford. And if I first talk about the aims of the work at the moment, almost everything that we're doing at the moment is focusing on CO2 for obvious reasons. Passenger cars in the UK produce a large quantity of CO2. It's hard to visualise what 72 million tonnes of CO2 looks like, but it is a significant contribution to our CO2 footprint, and we need to do something about it. And we are doing a lot to improve that situation. Over the last 10 years, well, before that, but particularly over the last 10 years, there's been significant improvement in engine and powertrain technology, which has led directly to improved fuel consumption and therefore reduced CO2. Also, you're starting to see improvements in other areas of the vehicle, much more widespread use of lightweight materials, which were previously considered rather exotic and expensive, but are becoming more mainstream as time goes by. If you reduce the weight of the vehicle, you reduce the fuel consumption and you reduce CO2. And over the period from 1997, the average CO2 emissions from passenger cars has fallen considerably, about 21% reduction, which is quite an achievement. The targets that we've been set as an industry are quite demanding. We are on our way to achieving those targets, but we have to keep improving the vehicles year on year. And every year that becomes more demanding because the big benefits, the big gains have already been taken. So you're left trying to further improve the situation from what is already a pretty good situation, and that gets increasingly difficult with time. So to step back a bit and talk about our work with Ford, over the last 25 years, that work has focused primarily on diesel engine research. In the 1990s, which was the time at which I started personally in that involvement, then all of the work was talking about clean direct injection diesel, which was at that time a new technology that was progressively replacing the older indirect injection diesel engines, and on its own, that one improvement could get you maybe up to 15% fuel consumption benefit. The challenge was to make it work, make it reliable, and make it clean, and that's where our research came in. More recently, from about 2000 onwards, the line is blurred because it's always been in there as a priority, but more recently, almost everything has been focused on fuel consumption and therefore CO2 reduction. That, as far as the work that we're doing is concerned, has become the number one priority. Now, you still have to do all of the other things. You still have to have good performance, good refinement, you have to have durability, you have to have emissions compliance, else you can't sell the vehicles, but you've got to do all those things and reduce CO2. So that's the challenge. Ford are still our main partner in that research, and during the 25 years, Bath has further established its international reputation, particularly in this area. We're well known, we present regularly in the US and in Europe our work, and we're becoming well known in the area that we do business, which is nice to see. And at the bottom there you see some photographs from that period of time. There's been some fairly innovative work done at the university, prototype engines of various types, some very talented staff at the university and within Ford have been involved with this relationship over time, and that's still continuing with the guys we've got here. So that's the history. The work that we're doing at the moment and over the last 4 or 5 years has, as I say, been focusing on the smaller, more difficult to measure benefits that you can get from detail changes to the engine. The big gains have already been taken, so really what we have to do now is attention to detail. That's where there are further gains to be made, but it's a much more challenging process. So, first of all, can you measure these changes? If you're talking about one individual change to the engine maybe is worth 0.5% on CO2, can you measure that reliably to have some statistical confidence that that's really a benefit? If you don't have that confidence, you're unlikely to invest the money to put that change into production. So it's crucial to be able to measure reliably what's going on. That's a significant challenge. It needs new techniques and new tools that we are helping to develop. And as part of that, you have to understand what's going on in enough detail to be confident that you're really observing an improvement and you're not just looking at noise, and that you understand the physics and the chemistry behind what's going on. So what we do is we take state-of-the-art tools from industry, but we move those into a scientific environment so that we can focus on the work in a different way than is done in industry. We've got the time and the space to look at some other effects that really are important but don't fit well into the mainstream of industry. To do that, we use a dynamic engine test cell. We've got 3 of these at Bath. We use a chassis dynamometer, which is for testing the whole vehicle. These are all state-of-the-art pieces of equipment. We've worked very hard to do the investment in this area. So there's a lot of things that we have done with Ford, clearly. Some of the headlines have been improvements in oil pumps that feed the oil into the engine to lubricate it. On their own, that can save you 3% of CO2 over the European drive cycle, which is the benchmark for our industry. We have shown that new blends of lubricating oil can save 1% of CO2, and we've shown why that is. Changes to the cooling system that every engine has to have can save 2% on their own. If you combine all of those savings, add a few other technologies that we've also looked at, then you can get around 8% improvement in the fuel consumption of typical passenger cars. And the important thing to mention is that these are changes that can be and are being implemented now. They're not in the future. They can be done in the near term. They're happening at the moment. And that has a significant impact, potentially, on CO2. And the kind of products that they're being implemented in are pretty wide-ranging. These are generic technologies that can be used in any IC engine or any vehicle with an internal combustion engine. And the internal combustion engine isn't going to go away. It's still going to be the mainstream of road transport for the foreseeable future, so we must do this work. And Ford are now offering vehicles that have extremely good CO2 performance, which just weren't available a few years ago. And our research has played a part in that, clearly. Ford are doing a lot more than just what they do with Bath, but we have had an impact in that area. We're still working in this area, reducing the losses within engines. There's still more that can be done. It gets more demanding each year, but it can be done. We're working, as well as Ford, the other partners in the project are BP and Marla Powertrain in Northampton, and also with other universities, Nottingham and Imperial College, on that project. We have other projects that are in a similar area, all reducing CO2. We have knowledge transfer activity, which is specifically set up to transfer the findings of our research into an industrial environment within Ford. So it's a completely different way of working, but some of the things we do are directly transferable, and we're working on that. We have a project with Jaguar Land Rover, Lotus, Shell, Leeds and Imperial universities, and that is looking at just how far you can reduce the size of a petrol engine in this case, with the aim of saving 35% CO2 by getting more power out of a smaller engine. So you can replace a big V8 engine in a Jaguar with a much smaller unit. That would be potentially the aim. To do that, you've got to understand the fundamental science that underpins it. And that's our part. That's what we do as a university. And then we've got to transfer it into the industrial environment. So, thank you for listening.